Muto reads equations and formulas to us one by one, in his usual enthusiastic monotone directly from the book. It's possible that he might be excited about what he teaches us. Sometimes he can display an awkward spark of passion for it, as if he's starting to get into the material. Most days, however, are like this one. What we're covering is fairly simple, so I find it increasingly difficult to keep my concentration on him. It's not too long until my legs begin aching again, which only makes it even harder. I realized I didn't do my intro. Hey everyone, it's Reselling the Drug Gamer. I almost starting to regret walking with City yesterday with Lily. Since leaving the hospital, I've done very little physical exertion. Walking to and from the local corner store hardly counts. Despite Emi's attempts when I first arrived in Yamaku, I had largely given up on the idea of ever returning to my old level of fitness. I have little doubts that's why walking around town for so many hours has made me quite so sore. It's depressing. It reminds me of one more thing I can't do since I had my heart attack. It makes me feel pathetic. Now, Ikazawa? It's odd for Muto to ask Hanako a question, but not unheard of. She quickly jumps to her feet, a little startled, and immediately pins her eyes on him. She knows that Muto calling on her is rare, so all eyes in the classroom are going to be on her. This way, she doesn't run the risk of making eye contact with anyone else. Yes? In this particular example, from the redox reaction, the combustion of methane reaction actually produces one more product that is listed. That product is... Even though it's a softball question... What the... Sorry about that, phone went off. Even though it's a softball question, she timidly waits a bit before answering, biting down slightly on her lower lip as if to keep her concentration. Heat? Well done! This is an exothermic reaction, with the reaction given more heat that is put into it. Receiving a nod from Muto, Hanako takes her seat once again, and gives a relief sigh. A shaky start, but it's something. It'd be nice to take her out for a birthday, somewhat different from the usual isolation of her room and the tea room. With the progression she made until now, I don't think she'll have much of a problem going to the city. Right, then. For the remainder of this class, I'd like you to work in groups of 3 or 4 on the problems in Chapter 12. I'll be here if you need me. Muto sits down behind his desk and pulls some loose sheets out of a folder and starts on them kind of a paperwork of his own. I thought teachers were supposed to do that kind of thing after class, not during it. Regardless, I look to my right to pick out someone to form a group with. Given the two smiling faces having near mine, I don't think I'm going to get much say in the matter. I suppose we have a group then. Hee-chan! You want to work together? Okay. That's great! It's really been a while. The class begins the process of noisily shuffling the desks around, with Shizune doing the same as she puts hers in front of mine. She's a little lucky to not be able to hear the din of the classroom, which is loud enough to cause some discomfort. Truth be told, working with Shizune and Misha is probably a good outcome. Shizune and I are pretty good on the subject, and Misha has really nice handwriting. As I look to Misha, I notice a tall figure behind her. Shadow catches Misha's attention as well as she turns to face the dark-haired observer. Good afternoon, Hanako! Hello. Shizune finally noticed Hanako, after looking up and following the gaze of Misha and I. In quick measure, she taps Misha on the shoulder to get her attention before signing away. Shishan says if you're looking for a group, you can join ours. Hanako looks down and blushes at the little offer. Out of all people in the classroom, Hanako's most familiar with us 3, so it's reasonable that she come to us first. But 2 of us are also her enemies, so we might want to be a bit cautious about that. Then again, her actually coming up to a group with the intention of joining them is something she apparently very rarely did before. She leaves briefly to drag her desk over, and Shizune and Misha wheel back to me as soon as her back is turned. I guess we get to play again, Hee-chan. You hardly ever play with us anymore. I wonder why. You two always seem to have some ulterior motive. That hurt, Hee-chan. I almost think you were insulting me. But it's Hee-chan, so I know that you're joking. Such a great sense of humor about it. It would be awful if someone were to take advantage of your good nature, like making you help them with their work. Shizune seems excited for a second, a little surprised that I'm willingly to challenge her. But when she sees Hanako comes back, she backs off with a smile. At least the mind games are over early today. Hanako gently sets down her desk in front of Misha's. Her eyes are locked downwards, and I'm left wondering why until I look around the class. Most are busy setting up their groups, but a few are casting curious glances at her. This range, it's hard to tell whether that is where the interest in her ends, or if they're talking about her as well. It's strange. No one bites an eye when Hanako runs out of classroom to avoid group walk, but now that she's making an effort, they're staring at her as if she's done something wrong. We all move to sort ourselves out, spreading our textbooks and worksheets around the larger surface area created by the 4 adjoining desks. It isn't long before the class as a whole gets down to work. Hi Hanako, it's nice to finally work with you. Yeah. Are you the reason Hee-chan has been avoiding us lately? Shi-chan says it's a little rude, but if Hee-chan wanted to spend time with a cute girl, it's understandable. I don't think it's like that. Hanako starts to fidget, unused to this kind of affection. I think that an ordinary person would drop the conversation by now, but Misha is like the antithesis of Hanako. Part of them includes being blind to ordinary social cues, while Hanako is overly sensitive to them. Good that Misha barrels ahead with the questions too quickly for me to get a chance to interject and guide the discussion somewhere more comfortable. Really? So, he wasn't hanging out with you yesterday? No. I can feel my cover being blown already. Lily didn't want Hanako to know that we were out buying presents for her, let alone planning out her birthday party. It wouldn't be good for her to find out. Yeah, I was doing something else. You know how it is. Busy, busy, busy. Always busy. Really? I wonder what's so important for Hee-chan to blow us off like that. If it wasn't to spend time with Hanako, then what could it be? It's really interesting. Now this is starting to feel like an interrogation. I'm surprised at how Misha is able to exert such a feeling of pressure without actually intending to. But were you with Lily? I know where Hanako managed to stumble on the answer. She may be dreadfully quiet and shy, but she's very intuitive. What makes you say that? Yesterday, Lily said something similar. We're being found out! Suspicious! Hee-chan, I demand that you explain yourself. Hey, should we be doing the assignment? But it's so mysterious! Even Hanako wants to know. I took a look at Hanako. It's true from her expression on her face. It's obvious that she wants to know as well. And I think we're past the point where I could weasel out of having to provide an explanation. I apologize to Lily in my mind. She really don't want to keep it a secret, but now doesn't seem impossible too. I feel a rush of conflicting emotions, so jumbled that I can't really readily identify them, but catching them on my head, I try to calm down and speak. Alright, I'll tell you. I went into town with Lily, but it wasn't what you think. Lily and I were, for Hanako's birthday, the cat's out of the bag, but it looks like Hanako's thinking a little better than I thought she would. A brief silence passes around our little group as Shizune and Misha look at each other sheepishly. I could tell that they didn't expect their game to turn out like this. Misha looks up to Hanako in order to apologize, then pauses. Hanako is staring at the middle of her desk and barely moving. A maudlin expression on her face. I guess I was wrong about her taking it well. Hanako? I'm sorry. There's a few seconds pause, but Hanako listens and shakes her head. It's okay. Her expression looks odd, like she's very tired. That doesn't seem natural, but it's nothing alarming. Nobody really wants to continue with the conversation, so we open our textbooks and begin our group work. This is pretty dull. While the equations were supposed to work out as a group will take a while, most of it is going to be boringly mechanical. It doesn't help that, well, that didn't go as bad as it could have. That's an awkward atmosphere around us. Still, we manage. Shizune's face betrays that she has been about the same expression of our work as I do. Two of us begin to write our group results. Misha, on the other hand, is crunching up her lips and visibly trying to make heads or tails of what we're doing. Hanako is looking on quietly, observing what we write and what I say. She usually has the same expression when the teacher speaks. It's a shame her attendance is so unreliable. With the way she takes in information, I think she'd do well in class. She actually followed the lessons regularly. I wonder if this might be why Shizune seems so hard on her. Hey, Hanako, do you understand this? Misha looks at Hanako, but I suspect her hope is more to find a comrade in ignorance rather than genuine help. Not really, guess. Surprised by how tense she is answering, but she settles down. She breathes out, and the way her upper body and head lowers remind me of a deflating balloon. You okay? I could go over this bit if you want. She's still sad that the cat's out of the bag. Hanako shakes her head slightly, but then again, I don't think she needs the extra explanation despite what she said. Misha quickly interjects, entirely oblivious, and I end up slowly going through how we ended up at one of our results, step by step. Times like this remind me that the kind of walk may not be mechanical for everyone, but rather feels that way to me due to my grasp of the subject. It's a satisfying feeling. As Misha brings her balled fist onto an open hand in realization, I discover another nice feeling. My explanation got through to her, and she managed to walk up to the next equation by herself with a minimal guidance. Throughout all this, Hanako is unusually unresponsive. She's normally very quiet, but one can still see that her eyes roving periodically over the landscape of the classroom in front of her, while anxiously moving her hands in some way, or shifting her shoulders periodically. Right now, these small movements that I've gotten used to seeing are all missing. Someone not moving at all is definitely weird. Even Misha can tell there's something wrong. Hanako, are you sure you're okay? Yes. Are you sure? I'm fine. A little more strongly this time, but she turns away as she says it. Only makes me doubt her answer. At the same time, I can tell she doesn't want to talk about it further. Having already had one very awkward conversation today, that I'm still not fully over. I don't want to pursue the matter too much for either. We settle back onto our routine, debating over our answers whenever a doubt comes up, but as time goes on, I notice that Hanako isn't talking at all. It's frustrating. She had made so much progress! Makes me a little mad at Shizune and Misha for undoing the surprise Lily had wanting to keep the secret so much. I know I'm at fault too. They could have kept it under wraps somehow. Shizune has noticed Hanako's silence as well, and is getting antsy. I can see it on her face. It's strange that even though she's deaf, Shizune had perceived Hanako's unusual quietness sooner than Misha. Hanako, you're being too quiet. You have to contribute too. Someday we might work on a bigger project, like one that's so big it's worth celebrating afterwards, like with ice cream or cake. If you act like this, we won't take you along. I can tell that they're trying to tease her to bring her out of her shell, but I don't think that's the kind of approach will work on Hanako. It will just make her feel worse. Guys, don't tease her like that. He-chan, it's all good fun. She-chan says she teases everyone anyway. They go back through with Misha moving away from the issue by asking me a question again. On seeing how difficult the problem she is working on, I don't know whether it was a skillful dodge or a mere coincidence. It takes way more of our time than necessary because Shizune keeps disagreeing with me while I'm trying to explain it with Misha. Misha is quick to believe her over me. So quick in fact, she forgets to translate what Shizune is saying. Heck, the clock is kind of ticking down. We should speed up a little. He-chan, you sound a little like She-chan there. Is it because I look at my watch? Jeez, is that really all it takes? Time management and suddenly I'm the student council president? Oh god. I wanna go. Yeah. I look at Hanako's desk to see how she's doing and freeze. Our papers are covered in equations, but Hanako's only halfway there. Seems like she hasn't written anything in the past 20 minutes. When I realized that, I want to kick myself for how dumb I've been. Should have known that someone as fragile as Hanako wasn't going to brush off what happened so easily. But I've been too eager to move on from an awkward situation to notice. She had been slowly shutting down for the last half hour and I had no clue. Her pen is still in her hand, but she doesn't slowly spin it around like she usually does. There isn't a single idle movement from Hanako. Only the fact that she tries to inch away when she feels Shizune, Misha, and me looking at her tells me that she is even still conscious. We look away, and at least in my case, it's partially out of shame that it's gotten to this point. Though on the outside she has shut down almost completely, I know that's a different story on the inside. What kinds of things could she be thinking about as she tries harder and harder to shrink into herself? As if by willing it, she could somehow disappear. Everyone's looking at her now, stealing quick glances in between putting the finishing touches on their work. Misha attempts to ask her what's wrong, but that only makes the problem worse. If she wasn't frozen on her seat, she would have probably run out of the room right now. Misha's questions are loud enough to be heard throughout the entire classroom, and for a second I'm ready to snap at her. Because I can only imagine how much worse it is making Hanako feel. Of course, if I were to do that, it'd only make the situation worse. I believe that Hanako had gotten stronger, and she has, but it wasn't enough, and I was too eager to believe it. Now she's terrified, alone in the middle of the classroom, and there's nothing I can do without drawing more attention to her. It's infuriating. Misha's worried, and even Shizune is biting her lip. None of us know how to deal with this situation. They decided to call him Muto. His judgment would be better than ours. I look up and manage to catch his eye, silently motioning for him to come over. I want to make as little fuss about this as possible, since if there's anything that would make this worse, it's more attention being focused on her. I know that Hanako can see everyone staring at our group, specifically at her, because they know that if there's a problem, it has to be her. Everyone knows her. It's the first thing anyone's mind would leap to. Her reputation for being a truant has marked her as an unusual person, even in unusual Yamaku. Who knows how many times they've stared at her before? Maybe it's because she's seen the class staring at her so much that she fears their gazes like she does, cowering from them. The time it takes Muto to walk over must be like an eternity to Hanako. She looks as if she's about to fall over. Muto quietly begins to ask us what's wrong before catching himself as she sees Hanako. Did we upset her? Don't worry. Muto bends down after calming Misha and looks intently at Hanako's face. Hi, Kazawa. Can I help you at all? His voice is hushed and gentled. Everyone acting so differently around Hanako now that the whole class has noticed something's wrong with her. Hanako doesn't respond, so Muto gently rests a hand on her shoulder. She starts shaking at his touch, but won't even look up. Hanako continues to stare into the equations on her desk, vision so unfocused that I doubt she even sees them. She is worse than before. I remember not even an hour ago she was able to talk to him almost normally. Muto grimaces a bit as he stands again. Now that his expression changed, I can see that he wasn't exactly unaffected by what happened either. He takes a breath to settle himself before speaking in a very quiet voice. I'm a little impressed at how quickly he takes control of the situation. Is that it? Nothing was wrong then? Muto seems to say that to no one in particular, but his words sound convincing enough that most of the people who were looking over at Hanako now turn away, getting back to their work. He gives a quick glance to his left and right. Several people at the desk around us are still staring curiously, but other than that, we seem to have escaped attracting too much attention. Muto notices me doing the same as him and smiles a little, in his usual stilted way. I think for Ikazawa's sake, it would be good to quickly take her somewhere away from others. Nakai, Hakamichi, can you please take Ikizawa out of the classroom? I'll keep everyone settled, so please don't worry about anything, okay? Anything about her, okay? He looks at Misha to tell her to interpret his words for Shizune, but she's already finishing her translation by the time he does so. It's remarkable how little thought she needs to sign, as she still looks quite dazed otherwise. Nodding, Shizune and I stand and move to either side of Hanako. Muto steps back and allows us some room, and talks to the table behind us as some people there have begun to mutter between themselves about what's going on. We look at each other before lowering ourselves in unison, taking one arm around each other's shoulders and lifting. The two of us begin to walk at a slow pace to make sure we don't inadvertently hurt her. As much as we try to make this look normal, I'm quite sure there would be many more gazes on her if it wasn't for Muto's distraction. Eventually, thankfully, we reach the door and go through. Nobody's outside, so we can walk down the hallway. It doesn't seem like it's making her more at ease than she was in the classroom, but I ask if she just wants to sit down. For a while, we simply stay in place and wait for her to say something. Shizune tentatively rubs Hanako's shoulders a little, but there's no response. Eventually, she shakes her head a little when Shizune tries again, but the others are looking at her, so we pick it up immediately. Shizune's hand again comes to rest on Hanako's shoulder as she awakens, her face lifting to two very worried and anxious people at her. She looks at us silently for a while. I'm internally worried she might freak out or do something extreme, but those fears prove unwarranted as she expression slowly changes from an almost lifeless blank state to a more normal withdrawn shyness. She wordlessly lowers her head and her eyes evasively move to the side. She looks embarrassed, almost ashamed. I want to say something, anything to help. Can't, though. I don't really know what just happened or even what caused it. I feel helpless and ashamed of myself for not being of any use. Shizune sighs before looking at me. Even without words, I think I can tell what she's asking. I'll take Hanako to the nurse. Is that okay by you? I communicate my intentions through hand gestures, but I don't feel like I managed to get through to her very well. Shizune makes a dreary face in response to my gestures, confirming my impression. She stabs her finger in the air decisively, first at me, then Hanako, and then towards the stairs. She waits for me to nod before pointing at herself, then pointing to the door at the classroom. I get the feeling Shizune is much better at this than I am. I nod at her since her plan is, after all, the same as mine. Shizune gets ready to make her exit, but she only leaves after looking at Hanako for quite some time. Are you okay with me taking you to the nurse's office? Hanako doesn't say anything or nod, but she stands up in place by herself. And when I begin to walk, she immediately follows. I've read about people being catatonic before, but I think this time I've seen it for myself. She looks extremely tired after everything that happened. It's not a surprise. After Hanako silently takes off her shoes and lies on the bed in the infirmary, the nurse and I take our leave. He shuts the curtains behind us. We both take a seat and I quietly and thoroughly go through everything that happened. Quite some detail. I want to understand what happened, and the nurse has a good chance as anyone of knowing. He nods through my explanation, his face looking troubled as I finish. It might have been some... crap, what was this again? It might have been very troubling for you to have seen all this. I'd be lying if I said it wasn't. I get that she's fainted, but I don't really understand anything about why it happened or why she's acting like this. He nods, but his face is clouded. You don't know either? Well, yes and no. It's complicated. I assume you heard of the concept of patient confidentiality at some point. This is a bit of a minefield in that respect. I'm gonna put this bluntly. This is a matter for Ikazawa and me, and her therapist. I want to protest, but think better of it. I want to deny what he says, but if I think this through rationally, what he says makes perfect sense. I understand. Good, good. I wish I could pay you more, but I think that Ikazawa needs right now isn't somebody preying into her past or emotions. Just needs someone to be there for her. She needs a friend. For what it's worth, I think you're doing well in bringing her here. Sounds like you and your friends dealt with the situation well, too. I give you a lollipop and a sticker as a reward, but you might be a bit too old for that. He gives a cocky grin, obviously trying his best to lighten the atmosphere. I'm not really in a laughing mood, but he does manage to get a smile out of me. Thanks, do you mind if I stay here with Hanako? I appreciate the thought, but I think it'd be better to let her rest for now. She'll be let back in her dormitory room this evening, so you can visit her then. I agree with him before standing. Feels like all I can ever do around the nurses humbly agree to what he says. But it was the same when the doctor's in the hospital too. The walk back to the classroom is a long one, my mind feeling heavy under the weight of so many things happening so suddenly. Even as I re-enter the classroom, I'm thinking about Hanako. Stomach feels like it's turning into knots while I think about how to deal with her. Still don't know what I'm going to say when I see her again. Thankfully, the class doesn't pay me much heed. There are a couple of questioning glances, but overall, not many people seem to be very aware of what happened. Muto raises his eyebrow to get my attention when I pass his desk. Nakai, I take it Ikizawa's in the infirmary now? Yeah, I took her there, and the nurse said I should let her rest. Muto nods, assuring me that I made the right call. He scratches his chin for a second before raising from his desk. Everyone, I want you to continue with the exercise. Nakai, I'll see you in the hallway, please. His speech is hushed, but overall he doesn't seem to be acting too differently from how he usually does. Being a teacher? Maybe it's to be expected. As we go into the hallway, I notice him taking a quick glance left and right to check if there are any students milling around. The hallway is nearly soundless, but I can't think of anything except waiting for Muto to speak. Nakai, what do you think the purpose of this school is? To cater to the needs of disabled students? Muto scratches his head as he shakes it. No, if we wanted to do that, we would have built a whole new school from scratch. One floor, talking whiteboards, that kind of thing. Look around, Nakai. This school is about giving you all the future that you would have been denied in regular education. Huh? Think of it this way. If we wanted you to graduate and go straight into a hospital, do you think we'd put in this much effort? Bluntness of Muto's statement temporarily stuns me. Causes me to forget about the immediate situation. No. That's right. We want you all to leave here as useful members of society. I'm not quite sure I'm following you. I have hopes for you, Nakai. You are possibly the first student I've had that gets my lectures. That isn't something a teacher should be admitting so freely. You could easily take your studies of science well into university. Have you ever considered that? I can't say I have. Well, what have you considered? For your future, that is. I can't say that I put too much thought on my future. For a moment, I'm distinctly reminded of Lily's questioning me about the same subject. It's only been a little over 5 months since I was gasping for air on the ground. It's too soon to be thinking about the future, and besides, Hanako's problems seem much bigger to me right now. Muto gives a disapproving sigh before continuing. Think of this place as an opportunity. You have boundless facilities, good teachers, plus here you have boundless facilities, good teachers, plus the added bonus of the nurse and his staff. You should be doing nothing but thinking of the future. Right. So I raised my head to meet his gaze. A thought occurs to me. Almost like Muto totally sidestepped the issue at hand. Excuse me, but why do none of the staff seem to care when Hanako skips class? I've seen you watch her walk out of the room more than once. Shouldn't you at least say something? Well, Nakai, it's not really that simple. Every student here has special needs. If it weren't for that, then we wouldn't have a school here. For example, I want to keep you in class if you're having trouble breathing, would I? But that's not... Muto cuts me off before I can even think about finishing my sentence. Ikazawa's case is very much like that. But instead of a CPR or a pacemaker, what she needs is time and space. The faculty was made aware of this from the day she first arrived here. Thus, whenever she feels the need to leave classes, we let her do so. And even though she isn't a star pupil, she seems to pass all of her exams, so it hasn't affected her ability to study. Isn't that enough? I open my mouth to protest, but I can't find a fault in his argument. While her condition does at first seem to be wholly psychological, its worst effects have been on her psyche. It still puts me off, though. Isn't he just passing on the responsibility of her problem? Surely she can't go like this for her entire life. I understand that you might not be used to this kind of thing yet. It's been a big change for you. That said, it's less than a year until graduation now. Maybe you won't have to get used to this school if you keep your head down. I'm sure you'll do well enough in your exams. I numbly nod, more to acknowledge that I'm listening than out of agreement. I feel like I was getting used to the school, but it feels like it's just been thrown back in my face. Sorry about that. But what about Hanako? I believe, well, I hope, that she will perform well enough to do what she needs to do. What that is, I don't know. Not all students leave school with an idea of what they want to do, unfortunately. He takes care to emphasize the last word, as if it wasn't quite clear enough already, and gives me a moment to mull his words over. Today's been a troubled day for you, and I doubt you'll be able to concentrate much anyway after all this happened, so I'll allow you to take the rest of the day off. Your grades have been good in this class so far, which makes me think you won't have any trouble catching up on what we've been doing. He gives a small smile along with his praise, as if to make up for the seriousness of his lecturing before now. Go collect your things. I'll see you tomorrow. Right, thank you. Rudo's roundabout speech has left my thoughts scattered. I'm still not any closer to working out what I can do to help Hanako, if anything. My mind is all the more confused after what Mudo said. I'm also still bothered by the fact that Hanako was helping at least as much by Shizune. Her enemy by proxy, as by myself, but I don't know whether that is just male bravado or genuine concern. While I collect Hanako's things and my things from the class, I continue to sort out my feelings. I want to say that I understand her and that I'm there for her, but while I might have been able to say that just yesterday, I can't say it now. Wish I could. I lay on my bed, trying to collect my thoughts. After Hanako's panic attack, I found myself fundamentally reassessing the relationship we share and what I know about her. I had a hard enough time dealing with 4 months in the hospital. One look at her scar tells me that she was in one for a lot longer than I was. But that as it may, I know next to nothing about her past. She has told me about the house fire, but only in the most basic way. What of her family? I haven't asked Lily about them. There hasn't been a good opportunity to bring it up. I don't know where she grew up or what her old school was like. Nor of her past, friends, her wishes and ambitions. Not even her taste in music, food, and movies. All the little things that I knew about my old friends. So what have I been doing? For all this time, I've been here and been with her and Lily. In the distance, I hear the bells signaling the end of classes. With any luck, Lily will soon realize that neither Hanako or I are around and return to the dormitories. My mobile phone starts to ring, cutting my thinking short. Quite startles me as I've rarely been called since coming to Yamaku. Hello, Hisao Nakai speaking. Oh, Hisao. I'm glad I found you. You weren't at any of our usual places, so I thought this was the fastest way to contact you. Probably should have guessed it would have been Lily, as she's one of the few people I've given my number to. Even through the phone, her voices sound slightly on edge. I miss the old flip phones. Like, I'm glad we have smartphones. I know this is a bit of a weird subject, but this is the only time you get to see, like, a freaking phone. I just want to say, I do miss flip phones. I always thought they were cool how they, actually flip open. Although I would much rather have the power of a smartphone over the flip phone. Even if I do like flip phones. Hanako and I left class early. She had some kind of panic attack. The line goes silent. If it weren't for the background static, I would have thought Lily had hung up on me. I understand. Could you come to my room? I'd like to talk with you. Sure, I'd appreciate the chance to have a bit of a talk, actually. Good. I also have some bad news. I think we should discuss this in person. It's hard to grab the seriousness of the situation from Lily's tone. She sounds so calm most of the time, but that could be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it. Okay, I'll be right there. I collect Hanako's school things from my desk and head straight for Lily's room. Okay. I accidentally continued a bit further in before I realized I need to actually stop, because things do get a bit more serious after this, as you might have guessed considering the context. So that's all for this time. This is Resonic the Drug Gamer. I hope you enjoyed the series so far, and I hope to see all you guys again next time. See you guys then.